Getting back on track with the season, let's finally review Not Asking for Trouble. Pinkie Pie is invited to Yak-Yakistan to enjoy a special holiday in yak culture, but the weird and wonderful festivities are halted when the entire village becomes buried in an avalanche of snow. Seeing them struggling to survive, Pinkie must think of a way to help them, a task which proves difficult thanks to their proud and stubborn leader, Prince Rutherford, refusing to ask for help from outsiders. This episode is the first to be written by May Chan, who, like Josh Hamilton, is also known for being a staff writer on Avatar: The Last Airbender. After Hamilton got off to a tremendous start for Pony with parental guidance, Not Asking for Trouble doesn't prove to be nearly as impressive, but there is still a fun time to be had here. It's interesting to see that Pinkie has kept in contact with the Yaks since their initial appearance back in Season 5, and her specially invited visit means that we finally get to see their village for the first time. Seeing the Yaks themselves again, however, really depends on how you felt about them the first time, especially as much of the episode centers around their culture and personalities, particularly Rutherford's. I have to admit that I was not the biggest fan of them in Party Poops, and unfortunately this episode doesn't do much to change that. But overall, I did find myself enjoying them a bit more this time. I think another part of the issue is that the entire race functions as one character with one single joke. And while that single joke does deliver some giggles at times, it can't sustain the Yaks long enough to make them all that funny, let alone interesting. If there's one thing that is notable about the Yaks though, it's that they are certainly unique with many of their cultural pleasures and traditions. And seeing as how Pinkie is arguably the most open-minded and unique pony of the main six, seeing her getting involved in having fun with things like smashing up twigs and branches is both humorous and cute, and also very befitting to her.
Pink Pony better check self before wreck self. That is century-old sacred yak twig, passed down from generation to generation.
Oh no! I'm so sorry! I was just trying to get into the spirit of Yik Slurperfest. Maybe I can fix it.
You're kidding! Yak got Pink Pony good. Hard bomb! Gah!
When the entire Yak village gets snowed under, Pinkie immediately suggests going back to Ponyville to ask for help. And despite her best efforts to convince him that there's no shame in doing so, Rutherford repeatedly says no, as he firmly believes that the Yaks can survive through the sudden winter alone by being patient and adapting to the conditions. This is where the episode starts to present its flaws. Rutherford's stubborn attitude is reminiscent of Applejack's persistence with her impossible task in Applebuck's season. And when the story starts treading on these familiar grounds, it rarely does so in ways that are that original or intriguing. Eventually, after being thrown out for failing to understand their ways, Pinkie Pie decides that despite their stubborn pride, she and her friends must still go and help the Yaks, and so brings them along to secretly clean up their village at night while they sleep. When they awaken the next morning to find the snow has cleared, Rutherford catches Pinkie with the others, but reveals that he isn't mad as he feels that doing something to help his village without asking meant that she finally understood the Yak's way of life. I have to say that this ending is kind of a head scratcher for me. On the one hoof, it is a nice way for the two friends to reconcile and understand their differences, and also has an amusing payoff when Pinkie becomes an honorary Yak and sees just how heavy their horns are when she finally gets her own pair. But what's the lesson here? What's the takeaway? Respect Yak culture or else Pink Pony go away?
You're welcome.
It can seem a little hard to figure out, but since this was a bit of an unconventional episode with some unconventional characters, maybe the somewhat odd conclusion works well with it. Not Asking for Trouble may not be up there with the greats of this season, but even when it feels familiar at times, it's still a good way for the show to try something a little different. I'm going to give it a Silver Star score of 7 out of 10.
Seriously, this is heavy.